fights are necessary for us to grow as human beings. But we also need to take care that we don't go overboard. Luckily, movie characters don't have that kind of restriction and are free to do as they please. I know you agree with me because you showed love to Volume 1, and that's exactly why the TV region is going to treat you some more with the top 25 badass fight scenes in the movies, Volume 2.
You're a driver.
I'm sorry to roll.
We're kicking things off with one of 2024's unexpected streaming successes, Roadhouse. No, this isn't the one that Peter Griffin from Family Guy keeps talking about.
If that DVD even touches Roadhouse, I will kill you.
But it might as well be with all the violence in it. Anyway, the scene in question is the final fight between Dalton and Knox, which, as you'd expect, is a roller coaster of an experience. We've got two super ripped dudes going at each other with all their strength, so you can expect a lot of excess testosterone in the air. The fight choreography was on point, but you've also got to give it to Knox for all of his weird lines.
Looks like I f***ed up your leg.
That dude needs help, and he knows it. On a serious note though, they knew that the ground game is Connor's weakness and they exploited it to full effect. The rear naked choke addition to the choreography was savage and added a lot of intensity to an already brutal sequence. Man, I don't even think the director would have had any special instructions for Conor McGregor here. He must have just told him to be himself. But yeah, I've got to give props to Jake Gyllenhaal for putting in all the work to look that good. Maybe Taylor Swift will give you another shot now, eh?
Is that a diamond?
No.
Right there.
It doesn't matter if you're the mafia. If you happen to come across Robert McCall, you better run for your life the same way everyone does their best to avoid John Wick.
9 seconds. That's what you have to decide your fate.
The Equalizer 3 is easily the most extreme out of all in the trilogy, and this fight scene proves it by a distance. After establishing various pain points at a local restaurant, Robert wants to make sure he finishes the job after he figures that those mafia goons are no good. What follows is a pretty simple but almost diabolical method of disposal, especially his final victim. That dude's the same guy he tortured at the restaurant, so you could say that he really couldn't catch a break. The calm nature with which Robert executes his execution is the perfect mix of classy and terrifying. What's really harrowing about this moment is the way Robert literally brings his victim's bone out of his arm. Jesus Christ. Even Keanu Reeves doesn't go that far, and he's the bogeyman. The final stare solidifies the fact that Robert wants to see the light go out in your eyes. Yeah, he really is the Grim Reaper, and only Denzel Washington can give us such a powerful portrayal.
Holiness, India's line. Baba Shakti!
We've got ourselves another 2024 release here in Monkey Man, and no, that name's not kept for the reasons trigger-happy people want it to be. It's actually a homage to the Hindu god Hanuman, who bears resemblance to a monkey. So yeah, now that we've cleared the religious aspect of this film, let's get to the blasphemous massacre that shocked everyone who watched it. Nobody would have expected Kid to go as hard as he did here. The man doesn't know when to stop, so he gives us an epic display of fighting skills with a load of gore and brutality. Props to Dev Patel for expanding his repertoire as an actor after the success of Slumdog Millionaire. What's even better is the way all those female warriors show up to support him and almost gracefully assassinate the remainder of Rana's goons. Add some crazy background music and you've got yourself one of the most hype moments of the 2020s. Yeah, I think I now know why Jordan Peele is an executive producer of this movie. Trust me, if you haven't seen it, at least do yourself a favor and watch this fight. You can thank me later. craze going around Deadpool and Wolverine, I felt it was apt to give a shout out to Logan, although he doesn't exactly dominate this fight and gets his butt kicked by a girl for the most part. Having said that, this is an awesome battle which totally deserves to be on this list because we get to see two super mutants unleashing their wrath. We all know what Wolverine's capable of, but Lady Deathstrike gives him a run for his money throughout the battle. It's like one surprise after another as Logan realizes that he's up against a female version of him. Well, maybe without all the cussing, I suppose.
Excuse me, I'm Eric Lenstra. Tell Xavier. Go f yourself.
It's an intense encounter that makes use of its surroundings quite well, and it manages to achieve a lot without having to resort to R-rated gore. The ending though was pretty emotional, as you can see the regret in Logan's face as he watches Deathstrike breathe her last. She was under the control of the serum right until her last few moments, so that makes it all the more tragic. So this is a bit different from other fight scenes, but it has an extremely impressive display of skills. We all know that Jackie Chan is a master of integrating comedy into his action scenes. Look no further than the Drunken Master and Rush Hour as examples. However, this fight against Bradley James Allen in 1999's Gorgeous is absolutely classic. It's hilarious for sure with all the weird expressions, but it's also got some super slick fighting from both parties. If you don't know Allen, he was an Australian stunt coordinator who was a member of Jackie Chan's stunt team. This dude has worked in tons of Hollywood films as a stuntman and coordinator, and it definitely shows. Some of those kicks he unleashed were so deadly that he could be classified as an S-class hero. There's also a lot of politeness and goodwill here as we see both fighters helping each other out in the middle of the fight. You can tell that both these guys love fighting against each other. The camaraderie is quite prominent. As far as the battle goes, it's definitely a unique selection, but it's also worth every second of its 9-minute runtime.
Made a big mistake.
Sometimes you have to sacrifice what's dearest to you in order to become powerful. That's exactly what Dwayne Johnson and Vin Diesel did when they gave up their hair for uber muscular physiques. Sure, Vin might be more of a fat and curious than Fast and Furious nowadays, but back in 2011, he was an absolute unit who went one-on-one against The Rock and almost smashed his face open too. Then he probably remembered the co-stars like family, and then he just surrendered. The battle though was as intense as it could get. You had two muscle men smashing walls and grunting like battle hogs without sparing any mercy. Sure, this isn't some kind of martial arts class or anything like that, but it had enough beef to have everyone on the edge of their seat, waiting to see who would eventually turn out to be the victor. Till the final blow though, this was as equally matched as I've ever seen any fight on the big screen. Maybe it's because their contracts must have stated so. Be that as it may, we still got to witness greatness right before the Fast and Furious franchise decided to abandon all logic for the sake of dollar bills. Chris Hemsworth sure seems to have some luck playing characters whose names start with T. First you've got Thor, now you've got Tyler Rake, who successfully saved Hemsworth from the curse of typecasting. The immense success that Extraction has enjoyed as a franchise has helped Chris stand out as more than the God of Thunder, and the best part is that he gets to be badass here as well. The fight scene between him and Davitt in Extraction 2 is proof of that. Bro was getting smacked constantly by a shovel, but took those blows like a total boss and did a lot more than return the favor. I'm not going to talk too much about the middle of this battle because it's mostly in the dark. What stood out to me was the way Tyler split open Rabbit's hand with his own bare hands. Dear God, what kind of strength do you need to possess someone to be able to do that? Even Davitt was like, damn, I've messed with the wrong Hemsworth. The finishing move was no less brutal, and it made the audience fear Tyler for a few moments after realizing the brutality that he's capable of. Even so, I still say that it's appropriate to take down a mobster by breaking the same hands that he used to kill hundreds before putting him in his place. Where are we going to get another series like The Transporter? These are the kind of movies the audience desperately wants to see, but I guess modern Hollywood hates us, doesn't it? Anyway, here's one of the most epic fight scenes from the franchise, and it comes in Transporter 3. Frank takes on a whole bunch of goons all by himself, and he manages to make a mockery out of them, while Valentina keeps giving him the eyes. Then, of course, he faces the real challenge, the big one. At least that dude was being honest about his role, and his strength definitely backed it up. However, when you're facing a guy like Jason Statham, you're going to need a lot more than size on your side. The way Frank manages to get the big guy down to his level may have been rushed, but the thrashing he gives him right after can only be replicated by a select few. See, this is why I always say the size doesn't matter as long as you know how to use it. Alright, I think I'm going a little bit off topic now, aren't I? TV region list is always incomplete without the ladies, so here we have Charlize Theron in her most popular action film role to date. Yep, I know she's got Mad Max Fury Road in her roster, that doesn't stand anywhere close to the havoc she wreaks as the Atomic Blonde. Lorraine is always up to the task when it comes to fighting bad guys, and she proves her mettle with an extremely savage takedown of these assassins in the stairwell scene. If the action choreography of a scene is done in a way that showcases genuine struggle and tactical adaptations against weakness, then I have no problem with watching a woman kick butt. I'm such a huge fan of this scene because you only really sense Lorraine giving it her all over here. She was by no means cruising through this battle, and it took her everything to turn the tides against her attackers. Also, there's the fact that Theron severely injured herself while shooting her own stunts, so let that be a reminder to you that fights aren't a piece of cake in the real world. Here's a Chinese film that deserves recognition just for this one single fight scene. Now, full disclosure, there's some very obvious usage of CGI, and while it may look a bit excessive for a couple of seconds, it does make the battle more dramatic. I personally like the wave motions effects because they show how much effort the fighters are actually putting in. The camera angles and editing is pretty fast paced, which accentuates the tone of the battle, and of course the ending is something that totally takes everyone by surprise. I don't know who to praise more. Is it the fighter who managed to land such a precise strike, or is it the sword that was able to stand still even while having a man's neck pass through it? Film nerds will be glad to hear that the stunt choreographer for this film is none other than Corey Yuan, who's carried out stunts for films like Lethal Weapon 4, Kiss of the Dragon, and The Expendables. A lot of complaints that I didn't feature the main fight scenes of Scott Adkins in part 1 of this series, so here he is in all his glory taking down 10 dudes in a nightclub.
Hit me.
It's not even like these guys are part of some Illuminati-level conspiracy. They're just a bunch of wannabe goons picking up a fight with someone who's way out of their league. Casey's just trying to enjoy a nice, quiet drink at a bar, so you can imagine his frustration when those dudes just started coming at him. The thrashing he hands out to all 10 of them was epic, and the man was unbothered even though he did take a few hits. The fact that he's able to punch through tables being used as shields speaks volumes of this man's ability, and even the ending where he dares the final goon to smack him stamped his authority. Can you imagine how awesome it would have been if they actually actually hired Scott Adkins to play Batman. Those fight scenes would be insane.
One question.
Stop it.
What? If you're so tough, why did it take you 2 punches to knock your wife out?
I just covered Scott Adkins, so I had to show some love to Michael Jai White as well. I'm not sure how much you appreciate the Never Back Down series, but factually speaking, some of these fights simply can't be ignored. Take the final battle in No Surrender as an example. You've got Case up against Caesar, who's at least got a whole foot on him in terms of height. The fight between them is so intense and instant that it doesn't even reach the ring. Now, we're usually used to seeing Michael Jai White dominating his battles, but that isn't the case here, as he really has to give it his all to counter Caesar's blows. Of course, it's only a matter of time before he takes off his shirt and activates lethal mode. What follows is a merciless rearranging of Caesar's ribs, and it makes you wonder if Case was actually going easy on him before. I guess he really took the film's title a little bit too seriously.
Bruised her face.
Really?
The blood to have kept it the way it was.
Keep because I'm done with it.
Jason Statham sure has a thing for showing off his fighting skills against multiple opponents. For all the bombs and guns that flood our senses in the Expendables series, the best fight is easily the one where Lee Christmas takes down his ex-girlfriend's current boyfriend and gang. Those dudes may have gotten a rough pounding, but I can't say it wasn't deserved. After all, it's cowardly behaviour to raise your hand on a woman, let alone the girlfriend of an expendable. All it takes is a minute or so for Lee to show those dudes how much they've messed up, and even though his opponents weren't all that tough, I still feel like this scene should get credit simply because of the dominance shown by Statham. Also, that little gag at the end where he deflates the boyfriend's ball was pretty hilarious. Yeah, sometimes all you need is a little swagger to complement your insane fighting abilities.
Let's go.
We're underway. Oh, and Drago comes out sweaty hands. Drago is pressing hard, but Creed is not backing off.
They definitely wanted to tap into our nostalgia feels for Creed 2, and from the box office returns, it looks like they succeeded as well. Adonis Creed faces off against the son of his father's murderer in this heavy-handed final match. It follows the typical formula of the main hero struggling in the beginning and almost getting knocked out right before he awakens his inner beast and takes the game away with a final rampage. However, what really hits hard in this epic finale is the emotional aspect. You can see how badly Adonis wants to avenge his father for what Ivan Drago did to him all those years ago, and it's poetic for the Russian to throw in the towel when he realizes that he might lose his son the same way Adonis lost his dad. Bro didn't want karma hitting him in the worst way possible, but I think the real villain in all of this is his wife. That woman left Ivan after he lost to Rocky, and she walked out on her own son when she realized he was going to lose to Adonis. I mean, that's some Amber Heard level evil, isn't it? I genuinely felt sorry for Victor when this happened to him, even though the guy was being a grade A jerk throughout the rest of the film.
Let's do it. This is bull.
Double or nothing.
There's more to Blood and Bone than just the final fight scene, you know? This particular moment where he hunts down 10 fighters just to make sure his flaky debtor pays up is simply amazing, and it's not just because of the ridiculous kicks he lands. I have you known that Bone is wearing work boots while taking down his opponents, which is supposed to be impossible if you're a normal human being. This man, though, is made of some different material altogether, and you can see in the ease with which he runs through what is essentially an entire gang. Not a single scratch and not a single breath in vain. Bone is an unstoppable beast, and he talks the talk. Also, if you can impress Gina Carano to the point where she gives you her number, then you're definitely an S-class fighter.
Take it back, don't let him take it back. Get up, come on.
Tom Hardy Hardy is a beast both on the big screen and in real life as well. Did you know that the man actually practices Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and has won tournaments all on his own? Well, after watching his fight against Mad Dog in Warrior, then you wouldn't doubt it either. Tommy's in need of $200 and he figures the best way to earn that kind of cash is to savagely beat up the most dangerous fighter in his gym. Nobody wants to entertain him at first, but all it takes is a little taunt and then little Tommy comes out to play. Our man manages to violate Mad Dog in less than a minute and he turns him into a wimpy little puppy by the time he's done with him. It was the perfect example of the predator becoming the prey, wasn't it? The domination is flawless, and if I had to pay that guy $200, I'd actually just give double just to make sure that we're on good terms after. It's a dream come true for any martial arts fan to see Donnie Yen against Scott Adkins. These guys are two of the biggest names in the fighting genre, and rightfully so. The only negative point about such a battle, though, is that one of them has to lose. In this case, it happens to be Scott Adkins, who has to be a hater in order for us to digest his defeat better. Either way, it's a legendary showdown with both fighters bringing out some of their best moves to try and gain the advantage. It's Adkins who dominates the first half, but after some mean-spirited taunting, it's Yen who turns the tables on him pretty soon. The speed and intensity with which these guys operate is something else. But more importantly, we've got to see Ip Man actually struggle during a fight, which is a rarity in his case. You know what I like about Rama? The dude doesn't go out of his way to do action hero stuff, even here against the Machete Gang. He tries to avoid them for as long as he can until he has no other choice but to end them all. This is an unarmed man taking on the entire group of machete-wielding psychos, and he manages to not only hold his own, but also end all of his attackers in ruthless fashion. There are some highlights, of course, such as the overhead shot where he takes on two guys at the same time, and the final burst as well, where he takes out the final dude by jumping through the window with him. It must have been a pain to choreograph and shoot this scene, but I'd say it was definitely worth the effort.
I'm gonna you up.
This is as real as it gets if you're to consider one man versus many fools. Hutch isn't a glamorous hero looking for honors or anything like that, he just wants to be a nobody. However, trouble always seems to find him, or the other way around, as can be seen when he challenges all those dummies in the bus. He doesn't dominate the fight like most of the other scenes on this list so far, but that's what makes it special in the first place. You can see that this is a real man fighting a real battle. He even has to come back for round 2 after he gets smashed out of the bus in the first half.
Round 2. Fight.
But yeah, they don't hold anything back, and even the girl he saves is pretty spooked out by the whole thing. I hope he gives her at least his business card so that she can call him whenever she wants to evade taxes. I think I'm covering this entry for the first time ever, and that just goes to show how many movies are out there which still haven't been explored by yours truly. 2005's Unleashed has one of the most badass Jet Li scenes you're ever gonna see. He's taking on Scott Adkins in an underground fight to the death, and if that wasn't crazy enough already, they also throw in 3 extra fighters to make it difficult for Danny. He does take a pounding at first, then he comes back with so much energy that it almost feels as if he's been possessed by a monster or something like that. Utilizing the weapons was the key to winning the battle, but Danny still makes sure to humiliate all his opponents while still keeping them alive. Now that's what I call a badass humanitarian. might get some comments for putting this scene at number 5, but I also have to consider how impactful a moment is when making these lists. 2008 Never Back Down had every millennial boy wanting to take up martial arts or kickboxing as a hobby, and that's the kind of revolution that earns you a legacy, even though the film's plot might be thinner than Kendall Jenner. Jake versus Ryan was the big finale everyone wanted to watch, and the fact that their outside match brought everyone away from the official final further cemented why this was the sole purpose of the entire movie. It once again follows the typical formula of the hero losing until he has a sudden flashback and he gets blessed with plot armor. However, none of that matters because he totally owns Ryan in his counters and gives us all a fight to cherish for the rest of our lives. The only L Tyler takes here is that he ends up with Amber Heard after the win. Did you really think that I wasn't going to include Tony Jaa in such a video? Here he is in what I believe is the ultimate fighting sequence in terms of stamina. Ong Bak 2 is a rather excessive film, and the final battle proves it because of the number of opponents Tien has to take down. The man doesn't get a single breather because as soon as he's done with one enemy, he's got another 2 or 3 to follow. Simply watching this scene made me tired, so I can only imagine how much of a challenge it would have been to execute as well. Having said that, the entire crew put in a stellar job because the final output was nothing short of exemplary. Well, how about that? Tony Jaa goes from having 0 entries in this video to 2 back-to-back bangers. Defeating 50 skilled fighters is probably a god-level achievement. Khan does it with ease, all because of his beloved elephant. I feel really sorry for whoever was crushing all that celery to create the sound effects for the broken bones in this fight, but I feel they must have been proud of what they achieved here. It's pretty much a perfect sequence, and there's nothing any critic can point out to change my mind. Just look at the final shot of Khan standing there while 50 dudes are down and out for the count around him. If that's not legendary behavior, then I don't know what is. Ah yes, this is probably one of the most epic fights of the 80s. Jean-Claude Van Damme was making a big name for himself, and Bloodsport's final encounter against Chong put him in the Hall of Fame permanently. It's a straightforward fight for Frank at first, but then Chong plays dirty and turns him blind, after which things get a little bit difficult. However, all Frank needs to do is remember some breathing technique, let out a few screams, and then we're back in business. What's really admirable is that he was able to keep the referee safe and win the fight as well. I'm sure that dude must have had his heart in his mouth when Chong pushed him into Frank. There were quite a few entries earlier where Scott Adkins was getting humbled, but the top entry today has him delivering what's easily one of the best fights of all time. Boyka vs Dolor was peak martial arts cinema, which had all the right ingredients to become an all-time classic. You've got the underdog with an injury up against the overwhelming favourite, some dirty tricks being used against that same injury, and the eventual victory coming from pulling the greatest Uno reverse in recent history. Boyka's handling of his opponent was badass on a whole other level, and it totally deserves the top spot. I think the only thing that's more badass than this is that Turkish hitman that won silver at the Olympics. Hope you like this video. Please subscribe to the TV region, and here's another video I know you're going to enjoy.